Hi, and welcome to this live reading from Unchecked, a steamy love triangle medical romance, MetroGen Kiss and Tell, Book 1 by Carina Alyce, and this is presented by Itsy Bitsy Book Bits. Chapter 1. Now, June. A brain tumor isn't the only reason people make horrible decisions. If anyone knew that, it would be Dr. Stella Magi. Every morning she looked in the mirror and said to herself, "Today's going to be a great day. No day but today. One day at a time. No moment but this one." Yeah, that was like 4 different affirmations at the same time. A solid combo of positive thinking, a dash of Rent, and several shots of Alcoholics Anonymous. And today she would need every bit of help. Stella fluffed her dark brown hair in the mirror and put the final touches on her makeup. Her picture was going to be taken a million times, so she needed to look even better than her usual slightly messy surgeon self. At least her hair was glorious. She couldn't get rid of the puffiness under her cheeks and chin, but it didn't make her any less of a dentist, ENT, surgeon, all-around kick-ass, staying sober lady doctor. Her cell phone, sitting on the sink's counter, rang. There was only one person she expected to call. "You aren't chickening out, are you?" her next-door neighbor and second cousin by marriage, Dr. Elizabeth Candle, asked. "Me? Chicken out? I don't chicken out. I'm going to haul my slutty self down the stairs and give them enough to talk about." Stella wouldn't hide anything. Hiding didn't help. It only made things worse. She would know. She'd completed a 6-year combined MD-DDS program and a 7-year ENT residency while being a full-blown alcoholic. It took a fresh start at MetroGen Hospital and finding a circle of solid friends to keep her on the sober side. Saying straight and narrow would have been an exaggeration. "This is going to be epic, memorable. Everyone you know is coming, and I think they're taking bets," Eliza said sardonically. "Do you think gossip mixes best with champagne, Bloody Marys, or Moscato? Spike the mystery punch with Everclear. Steal the jungle juice recipe from Thraki's Halloween party," Stella suggested, the almost industrial-grade, barely legal alcohol. "Never do anything in half measures." "Will we have any gentlemen callers?" Eliza asked carefully, trying to gauge Stella's mood. "Nope, not a one. Should keep the bet spread even," Stella said, cutting to the chase. No reason not to take a scalpel to the problem. She had perfect hands and great instincts in the OR. How could she have miscalculated so badly? "Remember, you are the guest of honor, so don't be late. Don't show up hungover or shit-faced drunk, either." "You're very funny. See you soon." Stella hung up the phone. She picked up her hair pick and rebrushed her locks for the 3rd time. There was no reason for her to bother. Whatever she did, it looked the same. With her precision skills, as far as Stella was concerned, there was no such thing as a bad hair day. If she used the right amount of focus, she could overcome anything. Except alcoholism and terrible decision-making? Fortunately, den mother Eliza Candle, her sister Kayla Varma, and their friend Angela Perkins had stood behind Stella as she took a hammer to everything around her. Elizabeth had a tendency to take in strays that accumulated at MetroGen Hospital, whether it be wayward cousins by marriage, half-sisters, or random cardiologists in training. She was eternally trying to fix things, especially after her husband Scott had died. Still, she was hard-pressed to fix things for Stella. Sometimes breaking things is in one's nature. Stella carefully spread a layer of eyeshadow and used her perfectly steady hands to apply mascara. She hadn't gone too loud, but no amount of makeup could cover the puffy face. Things would be different soon enough. If she had to do it all again, she'd probably do it exactly the same way. Stella adjusted her dress and checked herself in the mirror one more time. Yep, still 40 weeks pregnant, and it was time for her baby shower. Chapter 2, 4 years ago, September. Ortho was yelling at his residents again. This was going to be fun. Stella had been on staff at MetroGen for about 2 months. Sometimes surgery was such a boys' club. There was nothing more doodly or manly than orthopedic surgery. Between surgeons, they were called glorified plumbers or carpenters. It was hilarious because matching for a residency spot in ortho required the highest test scores and understanding of pathology. But once they started training, they got handed bone saws, the dosing chart for the antibiotic and Ceph, and permission to forget everything else. "Bone broke, fix it." There were plenty of medical memes which suggested orthopods didn't even know how to read. "Residents, fucking scram!" growled an authoritative voice from the scrub room of a nearby OR. Stella saw 3 ortho residents scatter like scared kittens ahead of one of the attendings. "If you do that again, I'm going to staple your fucking hand to the patient." Stella tried to stifle her laughter with her non-existent sleeve. She opted to hide her face behind a post-op chart. She'd heard of Joel Alfred Fred Glazier. Usually she heard the residents referring to him as a tyrant, murderer, and vampire. No one called him Fred within his hearing. He was a tallish, tannish, bald white guy nearing 40. Like most ortho guys, he'd been a pretty serious athlete and reportedly had the most colorful vocabulary of any attending in surgery. Basically, an all-around asshole, according to his residents. Personally, Stella didn't mind, as long as he wasn't an asshole to her. She could use somebody who positively oozed testosterone. Her second cousin, Dr. Scott Candle, right before his untimely death in a boating accident, had helped her get a job at MetroGen after her program chair's wife had strongly suggested Stella leave the East Coast. It might have had something to do with a drunken kiss between Stella and the woman's husband at the residency graduation. Stella had been sober for 4 months now, but she was getting that restless itch. She needed a high of some kind. She kept munching on candy, which she should have known better as a dentist. Caffeine didn't do it either. There was a certain itch she could scratch with the right type of guy. Maybe Glazier. "You better run, asswipes!" Glazier wasn't done calling after them. He threw an unopened box of gloves at them, hitting one in the back. He punched the counter near Stella. "Did they commit one of the 7 deadly sins?" she asked. "Other than incurring my wrath, is stupidity a deadly sin?" His gray eyes were still burning. He softened slightly when he realized he didn't know who she was. "No, I think it's gluttony, sloth, pride, envy, greed, wrath, and of course the winner, lust," Stella said, unabashedly checking him out. He was a few years older than her and had nice biceps. It was possible he had ripped his scrub sleeves off to show off those guns. He had a bold black tattoo on the left one. "Now that is a good sin. They aren't my type, so I'll stick with wrath to bash actual learning into these stupid residents." Glazier equally made no attempts to hide his examination of her with growing interest. "So what exactly did they do? Forget how to count?" "My dumbass intern put his hand in the surgical field while a resident was using the bovie." Stella flinched at his words. The bovie was the heated instrument a surgeon used to cauterize blood vessels and tissue. Since neither of those cocksuckers were paying attention, the intern got his hand fried. It's the fucking OR. They should know how to get through a single case without almost setting themselves on fire. "I like the yelling. Very macho," Stella told him. "Sometimes you've got to be the sledgehammer and pound these residents flat before you can reshape them." Now that he was close, she realized that he was actually gigantically tall compared to her 5'1". He had to be about 6'5", with massive hands to match, though he was built to run, not tackle things. Stella flexed her fingers. Her small hands were perfect for the minuscule adjustments needed for the delicate nerves of the face. "See, I go for more of the fake, gentle approach of psychological flaying. Ask them uncomfortable questions in the middle of a high-focus procedure. I don't think my guys would recognize gentle if it slapped them." Glazier's gaze traveled up and down her body before settling on her ID. "I don't think that counts as gentle. You're not known as a guy with a light touch. Rumor is you don't even know what that is." She winked and licked her lips. He raised an eyebrow, charcoal gray too, despite his lack of hair on top. "In my experience, you can go both gentle and hard, depending on which one you need." "Really? And which do you think you're in the mood for this morning?" He modulated his tone to a deep purr. "I feel like I should be able to do both deadly sins at the same time. How about wrath and lust?" "I see. Married?" Stella had decided new Stella needed to have at least a minimum standard. "Nope. You?" "Christ, no." "Kids?" Stella wasn't sure if the sober new Stella viewed men with kids as a deal-breaker. She'd never thought far enough ahead for it to matter. "Divorced over a decade ago. My 2 boys are pushing 18, he told her. "That isn't a boy anymore, that's a man." Stella was pretty sure high schoolers were too much of a Mrs. Robinson vibe for new Stella. Having a standard was a starting point, at least. "You're not a man until you know how to be a man." He tilted his head at her. "I have another hour before my next case, and I have a very nice office." "What a coincidence! I have an hour until my next case, too, and my new office is very nice." Her excitement was building. Drunk old Stella had enjoyed dirty, inappropriate sex with ineligible men. New Stella seemed into inappropriate sex, too, but it sounded like he was eligible. "I'm the division head, so mine is bigger, and it has a leather couch. Butter soft." His residents attempted to sneak past them en route to post-op monitoring. Glazier gave them a baleful glare. Don't kill him, imbeciles. While you wait, start naming the bones of your hand and then your foot. Don't stop until I see you in an hour. I expect at least 45 reps. Pick up the box of gloves, too. They scrambled like the frightened kittens they were. Stella couldn't help squeezing her legs together with quite a bit of the seventh deadly sin. He might have been a smidgen older than her usual type, but new Stella must be attracted to men who were mean and owned their testosterone. I bet you could convince me to look at your... She paused and let her eyes drift over his body, finally stopping on his crotch. Couch? He stretched with male pride. Let's take the elevator and find out. They went out to the staff elevator, which was pretty packed. He stood directly behind her, and she subtly pressed her butt against him. Something was getting harder, and she doubted it was his hand. It was a 4-floor trip downstairs from the OR on the 6th floor to the surgery clinics on the 2nd. She started grinding a bit harder each time someone got in. It was daring and dangerous, and what old Stella would have been prone to overdo and get caught, new Stella could be subtle. Cousin Scott had warned her something about the hospital's dating policy before she applied for the job. What was it? Yes. Attendings could sleep together as much as they wanted. Residents and attendings had to fill out disclosure forms to the hospital. MetroGen had the option of declining, but the higher up a doctor was in the chain, the more likely they'd give a permission. I've always wanted to see the ortho side of the offices, she said with a seductive grin. They entered the back door and walked past the medical records staff. It's important to have good relations between other departments in surgery. She was tempted to give his crotch a hard squeeze, but the file clerks might notice, which didn't fit in with new Stella's subtlety standard. He opened the door to his office. She stepped in, and he closed it carefully with a thud. She pounced first, dropping her phone and ID on a side table and pulling him toward her. Talk to me like you do the residents. A bad intern you found doing naughty things with some of your ortho residents. Teach me a lesson. No bruises. Correction, subtle didn't work here. New Stella was a naughty girl who needed some discipline. And that lit a fire underneath Glazier. He spun her toward the aforementioned brown leather couch and bent her over the arm. You've been a bad girl. Very naughty. He pulled her scrub pants and her underwear down. If you're going to let anyone fuck you in the hospital, you should get spreading your legs for an attending. Get one who actually knows what he's doing. I can't help it. I like boys. Stella fake pouted, spreading her legs for an attending. He slid his fingers to her wet pussy, curling them into a curve all the better to rub her G-spot. He stroked her from the inside and placed one hand on her back. Those are boys. You need a man. That confirmed it. All versions of Stella liked forceful sex, especially if she was in a good mood for it, like right now. I like what they do to me. Some other attendings have had a taste too. Stedman eats me out like nobody's business, she lied in character. Stedman was a friendly plastic surgeon who worked regularly with ENT. He had never come near her since he was happily married to an ER doctor and kept talking about starting a family. That wasn't the point in this case. Have you let any of them finger fuck you? How many of them have you sucked off? He asked, dropping his phone and ID too. Everyone in your department. I put them in a line and opened my mouth. That must have not taken very long. They have the control of infants. No, baby doll, I can promise this will take longer. But you obviously need a lesson about respect. He pushed her scrub top and bra upward. I hope you're on something, because when I fuck you bareback, you'll probably like it, you dirty little whore. See how much better my swimmers are than theirs. I'm on the pill and was clean after my last partner, so let's see you try, old man. You'll probably last 30 seconds. He pulled back his fingers to replace them with his cock in one swift movement. They both moaned quietly. Being alone in his office did not give them license to be loud with the entire office staff outside. He shifted his hips experimentally. Like that? I can barely feel it. Your cock is tiny, she said in her best whiny intern voice. Guess I better take you a little harder. He lifted her hips higher till her toes barely brushed the ground and started thrusting harder. It had been almost 6 months since her last partner. She was primed for anything. All she could feel was her channel pleasurably expanding to accommodate his hard penis. He leaned forward and cupped her breasts, pinching her nipples one at a time. Through the motion, he never stopped pistoning his hips, and his weight kept her pinned down, unable to move at his mercy. Fuck, she swore. I love getting pounded between cases. Oh, you like it? I can pound your pussy all day. Send you back to your attending with my hot cum dripping down your legs. Now beg. Let your dirty intern cunt milk me dry. Beg. Glazier's lips nipped her ear as he increased his pace. New Stella was over the moon. Please, Mr. Attending, I have been such a naughty intern. She struggled to keep from screaming because it felt unbelievably deliciously dirty. His next thrust pushed her over the edge. Stella grabbed one of his arms and used his hand to cover her mouth. He clamped his huge hand over her lips, trapping her scream. She bit him on the palm as she came in hot spasms. "You little bitch, never the hands!" Glazier whipped his hand away and slapped her hard on the ass. Her hiss of post-orgasmic pain was followed by him driving forward deeper than he had been before. Stella ducked her head down, riding out the last of her orgasm. 3 seconds later, he pulled out and something hot splashed on her back. She heard him step away and get something off his desk, then return and wiped his cum off her back. She bent down to right her pants and shirt while he did something similar. She faced him for the first time since she entered the room and gave him a fully satisfied smirk. That was fun. For a similar first time, he smiled at her. It transformed his features from angry intensity to a handsome man pushing 40. That was fucking fun. Stella checked her watch. We've still got 15 minutes till we're due in the OR. Damn, girl, you are one horny intern. He scooped up his phone and badge. Horny intern is named Stella Magi, by the way. She read his badge, pretending it was the first time. Joel Alfred Glazier. Can I call you Freddie? No. He gave her back her phone and ID. Not even my friends call me that. He lifted her chin with his pointer finger and gave her a surprisingly soft kiss on the lips. Next time, don't bite my hand. I need it. As your new special friend, I will try to remember it for next time. So back to the OR. You said 15 more minutes? Glazier kissed the side of her neck. Yep, Stella confirmed. He had the most interesting expression on his face. She glanced down at his crotch. You want to? I think I'm stock up on condoms, but right now, Glazier shoved her backward onto the couch arm and slid her scrub pants and underwear off again. He flipped her backward, hips up and head on the couch. He looped her legs over his shoulders, using his almost 14-inch height difference to his advantage. Waxed, that's what I thought. My dirty intern needs a good tongue lashing until she learns to listen. As he ate her out, Stella reflected that Glazier was the perfect friend for new Stella. That was how their friends with benefits relationship started. She and Glazier were never a couple. By mutual accord, if either of them was single and felt like having sex, they'd meet up. After the first year, they decided it was safer to avoid having sex in their offices. They broke their rule about once a year or every 3 months. Usually after an office encounter, they'd meet up after work at either her house or his. Their tacit agreement was to pause any contact while dating. Glazier had a particular attraction for ambitious women and went through a phase where he dated the entire evening news team of 5 on your side. Stella had a different problem. Her attitude and high-powered job had the opposite effect on most men. The male peds nurse she dated for 3 months couldn't quite handle that she made 10 times his salary. Neither could the surgical tech from vascular surgery or the respiratory therapist she met in the surgical ICU. Trying to mix it up and date outside of the hospital, she pretended to be a grocery clerk for a few weeks with a school teacher. The jig was up when he proved he could do the math about how much her house was worth. She didn't think it was too extravagant, next door to Elizabeth. However, most grocery store clerks couldn't afford a $400,000 house. He might have called her a callous, lying, psycho bitch and told her to get checked for a brain tumor. Then she and Glazier were back at it. She couldn't regret it either, even if this should have been a warning sign that neither of them could maintain a steady relationship. Having sex with him was fun because he wasn't intimidated and didn't worry about being nice to her. It was refreshing to have a guy willing to give her orders and talk dirty in the bedroom. They weren't hurting anyone, so why the hell not? No moment, but this one.